Hello everyone, welcome to Techies on Wheel. Today we will discuss about RPA unit testing, how the unit testing document is prepared, what it is about, and how a developer is ideally supposed to do a unit testing in RPA. So this tutorial is going to be a complete guide on the RPA, which is automation unit testing. So let's get started. First of all, let's understand this term unit testing. Irrespective of whatever application, whatever coding language, whatever application you're developing, the common essence of unit testing remains same, which means that while you're developing any of the project, be it RPA or any other project, irrespective, assume it like you are building a complete project, which is actually a multiplication or addition of multiple subunits. Units here means modules, which can be termed as also functions. So if say you are assume it as there is a project which you are considering where a bot needs to log into the portal. That's part one. Post login, it has to navigate to certain uh, location navigation window. That's part two. And say from there, the bot has to download the file, say any report file. That's part three. And then bot has to log out of that application and close all the applications being used. So that's part four. So here in this example, we are talking about 4 subunits. And when we talk about unit testing, once the developer develop each of the unit as part of being confident that the part developed by the developer is working as expected, the developer tests each of these units separately before they integrate it all together and move forward to integration testing. So this particular part of testing each of the functionalities, sub-functions, or modules of your project is termed as unit testing, which goes on by the a statement where you can frame it as unit testing is the process to ensure that bot module execution is performed as expected and has covered all the scenarios regardless of whatever decision is being taken. For example, again, if I go back on the previous example of login to the application, which was first part or the first module of your project's example. So there could be positive and negative scenarios to it. Positive scenario is that bot enters username and password and clicks on login, and the bot is successfully able to log into the application. Second scenario could be bot is not able to enter uh, on these respective username or password field, or is or fails to click on the login button. That's the negative scenario. The third negative scenario could be that password has expired. Fourth could be that the credentials are wrong. It's not correct credentials. So there can be different positive and negative scenarios which a developer should consider as part of effective testing and should be well drafted in the unit test document while he or she evaluates that particular module of the project. We'll discuss in detail about how does this document looks like, but meanwhile, let's understand what this unit test document is. Again, it's nothing like we just discussed. It's a kind of workflow which is drafted in form of any document, be it specifically if I talk about the most common used is the Excel, where all the testimonials or the design or the workflow is captured as a part of positive and negative scenarios, and developers go through while testing that particular module to verify if all those scenarios are covered or not. So what does this document includes? It includes your key task or the module name, which you are going to cover here, then the test scenarios, which we mentioned, what kind of test scenarios are going to capture, say you enter username, enter password, click on login, all these scenarios, then the test iterations. There are probability that in the first iteration, if you run it only one time, it may pass. But if you run it multiple times, if there is a probability that your bot fails a certain iterations or something, so you should do a rigorous testing around that module. That's what test iteration means. Then we have the expected result column where you mention the what kind of expected results you have, actual results, what's the output of the bot when you tested that particular module. Then the unit testing logs and who has shared this observation. So again, why we capture observation by you may question this, considering it's widely spread that it's developer who does the testing, but To cover that, let me give an example. In the agile mode, where say if we develop a module, there is the best scenario, best practice which is followed throughout the industry nowadays is that while developing a module, there is a small iteration kind of demo which is given alongside with the client to showcase what is being done by bot to give the confidence that your development is progressing as planned and is performing as expected. So that's where the observation could be from client, your line of business, business analyst, or product owner, or maybe even a developer or the technical person, solution architect. So let's have a look onto how this unit testing document looks like and how actually a developer should carry forward the unit testing. So the document here, again, which I'm referring is the template which is provided by Automation Anywhere, just for reference purpose. And like we discussed, there are different columns which is being captured as a standard throughout industry. Specifically, it can be further modified as per requirements or your observations or organization changes. But these are the standard columns which are captured in the Excel format for doing the unit testing. So the very first one which we discussed about the key task, where you mentioned which specific module you are talking about here. For example, this is the first one where we say download BI report, which is XLS format. So that's the key task which is being tested. And alongside this task, we have different test scenarios. For example, extract BI report to local, then sort them. Sorting is maybe one kind of test case in your activity in that particular key task that is mentioned, and then saving the Excel. So these three steps, for example, is being performed in this particular subtask of download BI report. And the number of iterations, say if you want to test if your bot is performing all these three steps, which eventually leads to downloading of the successful BI report, you can loop it into 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, whatever be to make sure the code is performing as expected. And then if in case, say in your observation, you find that all these steps were successfully performed in all the iterations, so you can, what's the expected result here is that at the end, post downloading, sorting your file, and the bot should save that particular Excel in the specific location. So the expected result here is file saved as specified folder with record sorted out correctly. So that's what the expected result is. Once you have tested this particular task, so whatever is the observation, has the bot successfully saved it or not? If it has saved, so you can mention the actual result as something like file saved at specified folder. If in case it to say, for example, if you observe that file was not saved in iteration 7, so you can mention that file saved or failed at 7th iteration. So something like that you can capture here. Then your log to that run you need to attach here, and then what kind of observation it was and how you can rectify it. Similarly, if you see the subtask, so whatever be your entire project, ideally your entire project is combination of multiple subtask. You need to capture here, you need to mention these test case scenarios. Even in some organizations, BAs help you capture these scenarios, but there are some scenarios which needs to be also captured keeping in mind from the technical perspective, onto how many iterations. Say for example, login page. Login should always be tried only twice, because otherwise your credential might get locked. So the one scenario for login page would be here is that if login failed twice, third time bot should not try, rather send an notification to respective stakeholders stating that credentials are not working or bot was not able to log in successfully. So that's a positive scenario. Negative scenario could be that the bot has even failed twice, say while entering the credential, but third time also bot is trying that login. There itself you have to stop the bot. You have to capture that scenario because that's where your bot has failed. And you do not want to run into the scenario where your credentials are locked and then you have to wait another day or two just for your credential to get unlocked to move further with your development. So that's where unit testing comes very handy, very useful, and should ideally be performed by each developers as a proof of and as a confidence, to gain confidence that your code is working as expected. Hope this would have covered your questions, how exactly unit testings are being performed by developer, why it is helpful, and how do we draft, and uh, ideally what all needs to be captured in the unit test document. So what next? In the next video, we'll try to capture a very similar concept, but a different integrated form of the RPA UAT testing, which is user acceptance testing. Till then, keep learning, keep growing, stay healthy, and stay happy. Thank you, everyone.